What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I want to share with you an updated list of my top 12 favorite budget knives of all time. This is going to be based on, as of right now, February of 2020. Not everything on this list is going to be from 2020. It's going to be everything that I found that I just absolutely love, the top 12 budget knives that I absolutely love up to this point. These are going to be, by most people's standards, all considered budget knives. I know that there's a few people out there who consider budget knives, extremely inexpensive, and other people, they can go different ranges. By most people's standards, these are all going to be budget knives. If you want to check on actual pricing, all you have to do is pull open my description, click on that very first link, and what it's going to do is it's going to take you to my Amazon store where I've got everything nicely categorized out. You can go into best budget knives, and everything that's on this list will be in that category. There's not just 4 in there. There's a whole bunch of them, and you can see up-to-date pricing because prices change. It's also important to remember that I'm not going to be listing any Gonzos on this list. Not because I don't like Gonzos. By the way, the rat is just a placeholder while I talk. It's not that I don't like Gonzos, it's that there's a ton of knives from Gonzo that are great budget knives, but they're all based on original designs. They're not clones, they're just borrowed designs, and there's a bajillion of them. So they're not going to be on the list. All the knives on this list are going to be original designs. Also, this list is based on knives that I have actually handled for myself and reviewed on the channel. So this is going to be an iPad episode where I swipe through and show you pictures because that's easier, because I don't hang on to every single knife that I review. But rest assured, if you see it on this list, I have physically handled and reviewed it. So if you want to go to the unique review, you can check that out in my Cheap Knives I Like playlist where they'll all be located. Okay, guys, that's going to be pretty much it for the introduction here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and move this out of the way, cut the lights, and get started. Okay, and as you can see here, we've got a beautiful title card that I put so much work into. Let's go ahead and proceed here with number 12, and that's going to be something that's not going to surprise anybody, the Spyderco Tenacious. Look, I know that HCR 13 MOV is like, people look at that and they're like, it's not a brand new shiny steel, it's outdated, it's not. HCR 13 MOV is, it's just fine. It's not anything spectacular for today's budget world, but more importantly, the Spyderco Tenacious is still the best gateway Spyderco folder out there. Right? There's a ton of great Spyderco knives that I can recommend to people, but it's hard when I'm like, try the Spyderco Shim, and it's only $180. And people who have been buying, Walmart knives for like 20 bucks are like, what? Okay, no, thank you. It's much easier to get people into Spyderco with the Spyderco Tenacious. It gives people a great idea of Spyderco's ergonomics, the thumb hole, right? And then you've got a decent steel, but fantastic construction for a knife, and a great example for Spyderco knives in general. Moving on here to number 11, this is the Savini Shredder. A lot of people, I'm sure, are like, why is this not higher on your list? Look, this knife is designed, with Savini, it's like, just pick, truthfully, you type in Savini knives. In fact, I've got a whole category in that store that I showed that's in my description. There's a whole category for Savini knives because everything Savini puts out is just amazing, right? But amongst all those Savivis, I love this one. It's definitely in my top 12. The only thing that held me back from putting it higher on the list were the somewhat sharp edges on the inside of that hole. I like to do the reverse flick with my knives, and I can feel that tearing away at my fingernail just a little bit. Is that a big deal? No, because the rest of the knife is designed like flawlessly. Great ergonomics, great placement of jimping. There's even a little space up here that you could call a forward choil for your finger. It's ground incredibly thin behind the edge. Very performance-oriented blade. Absolutely, really happy with that. Moving on here to number 10. This is the Kershaw Bareknuckle. There is a more expensive version of this knife that is in 20 CV. It's a great value, but I personally wouldn't consider it a budget knife. The standard version of this knife, however, I definitely would. In fact, I dare say this might be the very best. Savini's going to contend with it, and there's going to be some other knives that are going to contend with it, especially if you're watching this like a year or two in the future. But this knife has like the best total cost to flipping action ratio that I've ever experienced. It's just amazing. And on top of that, you have a sheep's foot blade that's designed very well. You've got the 6061 T6 aluminum handles, and it's made in the USA for a ridiculous an amazing price, right? So yeah, this is a fantastic knife, absolutely. Moving on here to, what are we at here? We're at 12, 11, 10. We're at number 9. This is the SIVB StepTara. This is one of the more expensive knives on the list, but it still made it. I'm not the biggest fan of carbon fiber laminate and G10, but in this price range, I can absolutely take it. This is probably one of the more, you know, flashy knives from SIVB's line, which makes the price on it all that much, or all that more amazing, honestly. I bought this knife as a gift for my good buddy Ricky for his help with the channel, and it's amazing. It's got a tumbled blade. One of the few knives in SIVB's line that has a tumbled blade. Do more tumbled blades, SIVB, definitely, because that takes care of the issue like with the Backlash, where those edges around the thumb hole were kind of sharp. Yeah, not on this guy. Excellent ergonomics, really great looks. Love the bronzed sort of pivot color there, absolutely. This is just a fantastic knife. I mean, and in terms of performance also, I mean, you can do the reverse flick because of the little groove there, or the fuller on the blade. And then also it's ground like many SIVBs, very thin behind the edge. Let's see, 12, 11, 10, 9. We're going on number 8 here. One that I think will be like, what? With a lot of people. This is the steel wheel Tennant. And admittedly, it's not very flashy, but a closer look reveals that this knife has some very simple yet very ergonomic lines. It is G10 over steel liners, very sturdy construction, nice chamfering all the way around the handles. D2 steel that has been coated. I don't think that's a DLC. I think it's just as simple. It might be like more like a Cerakote or something like that. But it's ground, almost completely flat, and is very thin. It's a very straightforward, very classic drop point, or some people might call it a clip point blade, modified clip point, whatever you want to call that. Most importantly, it's the only knife on this list aside from, I think, one other that runs on phosphor bronze. That's really important to me because a trend right now in the knife world is everything running on bearings because it makes the action really smooth. It does, but when I think of a budget knife, I think of a tool, right? So fidget factor is certainly a thing. That's, you know, something that we all, you know, in one way, shape, or form, a lot of us really care about. But when it comes down to it, you know, these budget knives really make... They end up as a tool, right? Once the novelty of a new knife purchase wears off, you're left with the base function of the object, which is to cut. It's a tool. So you're probably gonna be more likely to get this thing down in the dirt and the debris of whatever it is that you're doing, right? And phosphor bronze are really, really gonna aid you in that venture. So steel wheel Tennant, absolutely one on the list. So 12, 10, 11, 10, 9, what are we on? 8 or 7. Anyways, next up, I should have these numbers numbered off to the side. The SIVB Backlash. This knife it's a little bright here. Sorry about that. This knife is almost perfect in terms of ergonomic lines. It has one of the most organic in terms of like where your hands naturally fall on this knife, it truly feels like an extension of your hand. On top of that, you get SIVB's legendary action. You get the thinness behind the edge. I mean, just about absolute perfection all the way around. The only thing that held me back a little bit was the 9CR18 MOV steel that they were using. I was kind of a little bit, didn't know a whole lot about it. And early reports were like, oh, it's comparable to 440C. And then later reports, after a lot of people started using it, were saying, actually, it takes a really fine edge and it holds it a lot longer. So I've kind of come around. My knowledge of 9CR18 MOV, or if I'm getting that number correct, there's so many CR steels. I always mess those up. I have such limited experience with it. I'm just kind of not 100%, you know. And I feel like maybe SIVB picked up on that because they've switched a lot of their line to D2, and people kind of know to see D2 as, hey, that's a good steel. So definitely deserving of this spot on my list. Moving on here, another one that flew completely under the radar for a lot of people that I just went crazy for in the review. This is the steel wheel Shaola. This knife got everything so right. And believe me, it comes in many forms. You want a satin blade, you want black G10, or you want blue G10 with satin, or blue G10 with black, right? They have a whole bunch of different versions of this. But this knife has contoured scales, textured scales, right? It's got T8 hardware across the board. We have this clip point blade, beautifully ground, excellent pocket clip, excellent. I mean, just excellent. The only reason that this knife is not a little bit higher on my list is because everything that's higher on this list is just almost completely interchangeable with the one right before it. You know, that's what's so difficult about making this budget knife list, is it's just like when it comes down to like the last 5 or 6 or 7, it's just really difficult to place one over the other for different reasons, you know. This knife runs on bearings. I might put it higher if it was on phosphor bronze, though there are knives on this list that have either phosphor bronze or bearings that are a little bit higher. So I'm starting to ramble now. Just know that I very much recommend the steel wheel Shaola. This is an awesome knife. I have no idea why it didn't pick up and become more popular. It's truly excellent. By the way, almost completely fall shut action. If not, I believe it actually did have fall shut action, the review that I did. Anyways, moving on here, the Bestech Texel. This is a fantastic EDC knife from Bestech. It's a little smaller than the Lion, but you can still get a full grip on it. It has a construction that I really, really like, and that's G10 over steel liners. It has a beautiful sheep's foot blade. Running on, the hardware back here is T6, but it has that sort of Bestech straightforward feel. The reason that I put it just a little bit higher than the Shaola is that it's one of those Bestechs that offers some different colors of handle scales. Functionally, it's almost perfect, just like everything else you're going to see from now until the end of this list. Sorry, we're getting a call from Arizona right in the middle of this. Anyways, the whole knife has Bestech's, you know, premium feel, premium fit and finish, but the colors that are available are awesome, like this JG10. Generally with Bestech and their budget line, and a lot of knife companies in their budget lines, they're just using the standard black G10, OD green G10, and the tan G10. Okay. This has some other cool stuff, right? It's got some other flares, some different colors. I think the one that I had for review was black with orange on the backspacer. That's kind of neat. I like that. We should be adding more flares, some weird colors. I'd love to see more jade, more natural G10 in the knife world. Absolutely. This knife and its variants are, again, like everything else on the list, available in that link from my store. Moving on here, of course, this list would not be complete without the knife that actually motivated me to do my series, the quest of the perfect budget knife, the quest for the perfect budget knife. The Ontario Rat 1 and Rat 2 and D2. I mean, the reason I lump them both together is whenever I see a top 10 list of like budget knives or top 20, whatever, and someone lists the Rat 1 and Rat 2 individually, I'm like, are you implying that somebody who would put the Rat 1 on the list wouldn't put the Rat 2 or vice versa? No, I mean, the Rat 1's the bigger one, 8.6 inches. The Rat 2 is the smaller one, it's like 7.5 inches, something like that. They're both incredibly recommendable. It's the only thing on this list that has FRN. I am so like anti-FRN, but that FRN looks and feels so close to G10, it tricks my brain, and I have absolutely beat the crap out of mine. No issues with it, which probably speaks to FRN entirely, but truthfully, I just don't like FRN. But I love this knife, right? I love the pivot setup. I love the flat ground blade. I love the nature of the knife being very straightforward, no pomp, no frill, just function. Love the liner lock. The construction of this guy is absolutely heavy duty for the price range that it's in, and it's tackled everything that I have thrown at it. It also has positions for tip up, tip down, right or left-handed carry, which is amazing. This knife is the oldest knife, I think, on this list, and it is truthfully still competing with the very best budget knives that are out there, at least in my opinion, right? I haven't handled everything, I haven't experienced everything, but the Rat 1 and the Rat 2 still absolutely compete with the best stuff out there. Moving on here, I believe this is second to last, or it might be third to last. This is the Bestech Lion. This knife, I've tried to like push on people, and people are like, yeah, you know, it's pretty good. It looks like a lot of the other knives in Bestech's line, but this knife is so straightforward, and I'll tell you exactly why I like it. The carry profile is excellent. It's roughly the same size as a Benchmade Griptilian or Ritterhogue. It's got the contour G10 scales. It's got the excellent construction, right? It's got a robust feeling in the hand, right? It has that sort of drop shot, that snappy, you know, flipper action that we're all used to getting with the modern folding knives of today's world. But it also has kind of the more hard use feel of like the Rat. It's got a lanyard hole and a glass breaker for people who want it, but you can actually take the knife apart and pull that that backspacer out, and it's left with just standoffs. So that's kind of cool. You can get it set up the way that you want. Very, very simple construction, not obtrusive. It gets a lot of things right. Truthfully, there's only one thing that I don't like about this knife, and it's the fact that it uses T6 hardware. There's only a couple of screws, but even their pocket clip stands out as a better pocket clip design than a lot of the ones on this list. It truthfully is. The Bestech Lion is still, to this day, my favorite Bestech knife that's out there. It's excellent. It's very straightforward. It's absolutely a tool, but it has a lot of those fun fidget factor elements that we've all come to enjoy. Okay, I can't remember if this is second to last or not. It's hard. Believe me, I'm sure you guys are like, how do you not know, right? It's because this list originally started with like 50 budget knives, and I had to slowly peel away ones and come down to a list of 12. And like I said, the last 5 or so are all interchangeable, so it's really hard. But anyways, no, this is this is number 2. This is the Tucson TS49. Now, admittedly, there are a ton of Tucson knives that I have not experienced. I actually made an entire category on my Amazon store that's just Tucson knives because they're just the most ridiculous value. I mean, I think they're one of the only budget brands that are making original designs that are offering materials like carbon fiber and titanium in that almost universal budget parameter, right? I'm not exactly sure how they're doing it. On top of that, the finishes that they're putting on their blades and the feeling of the action, truthfully, this TS49, when I picked it up, when Neves Knives sent it to me, I ended up putting it back down thinking, did they accidentally include a $200 knife in here? It threw me, right? I'd love to tell you that I have the sharpest, most keen sense of a knife's value just by picking it up. But the TS49 proved me wrong, right? It is so precision made. You're not going to find better value out there. And on top of that, they have expanded into the whole ultra budget, medium budget, and sort of high-end budget. It's hard to explain, but if you go and look at that category on my shop, you'll kind of understand in terms of the materials that they use. On their really low budget end, they've got G10 and D2. On their medium end, it's kind of like this, where it's D2 steel and then it's titanium and materials like carbon fiber or just titanium. And then on their high end, which still is not that expensive, they're using titanium and M390. Have you wanted to get your hands on a titanium and M390 knife and that didn't like destroy your wallet or burn a hole in your wallet? Go with Tucson. But seriously, back to the TS49. This is my favorite. I mean, out of everything that I've even seen so far, this knife is just excellent. All the way around, it's got a great functional grind, great look, it's contoured, titanium and carbon fiber. It's got a steel lock bar insert. I mean, just wonderful. After playing with it a little bit more and thinking about it, it was hard for me, but I honestly do put it ahead of both the Rat and the Bestech Lion now. Okay. Number 1, a lot of you can guess, especially if you've watched my Quest for the Perfect Budget Knife series. But, when it comes down to it, considering performance and my own personal preferences in ergonomics and what I consider to be a budget knife, right? All of that considered, just for me, the SIVB Praxis is the ultimate budget knife. I'll tell you this right now, it will take a seriously amazing knife to knock the Praxis off the number 1 spot for me. Here's the crazy thing about this, and actually all the SIVB knives, I think, almost all of them on this list, they also have Damascus versions that, I mean, still fall within, the higher end of what I would consider to be a budget knife. So if you're like, that looks cool, but I'd really like it in Damascus, yeah, you can get it, and it's in my store. So anyways, this knife has a very similar visual lines to the Spyderco Shaman. And you guys know how much I love the ergonomics and the look of the Spyderco Shaman, but it's basically like if you took the Shaman and got rid of the compression lock and turned it into a liner lock, then put bearings on it and made the blade stock a little bit thinner and changed the grind a little bit, that's what you've got. Amazing chamfering all the way around. You've got T8 hardware, T8 pivot, a pretty good pocket clip, and the rest of it is just perfect. The blade is an absolute laser beam, but it still somehow is strong enough to deal with things. I mean, truthfully, the only thing that could possibly make this better in the budget line, a lot of people, or in what most people consider to be budget parameters, And some people are going to disagree with me because they just really like bearings. Honestly, if they made a version of this knife on phosphor bronze, it would be like the ultimate folding knife, the ultimate tool, the ultimate beater folding knife, and I would gladly pay for it. But I am perfectly fine with bearings. I don't want to imply that bearings gunk up so easily that they become useless. That's not the case, you know. It's just that phosphor bronze are a little bit more durable. But this is the closest thing to a perfect budget knife, in my opinion, that exists. And nothing that I've seen or experienced so far has knocked it off the list. Now, I'm always hopeful. You know, it's still early in 2020. Maybe SIVB's got something planned. Maybe some other company's got something planned. I'm open to it. But I'm telling you, it's going to take an amazing knife to knock the Praxis off my list. If you like larger knives, these are about 8 1/4 inches overall. If you like larger knives that don't weigh very much, that are very, very functional, and you have not experienced this knife yet, it is hands down the most recommendable budget knife that I have ever experienced. Guys, that's going to be pretty much it for today's updated favorite budget list. My top 12 favorite budget knives here as of February 2020. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you guys found it entertaining. I will continuously update this list over time. I might do it about twice a year, maybe 3 times a year max. But in any case, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.